Okay, so we have a very special presentation this morning. Normally, Ashley Kirkland is out and about wandering the Upper Peninsula, showing you some really cool events and things that are going on. Well, this week, today, she is joining us from a place that she had the opportunity to explore a little closer. So, Ashley, where did you go?
Well, good morning, guys. Last week I got the chance to visit a unique honey farm in Greenland. Now, the owners of Algomah Acres Honey Farm, they create much more than just honey. It's also a meadery. If you're not familiar with mead, it's a fermented beverage, which I'll look more into as we go into the segment. And the operation is on a beautiful restored church, which sits on a cemetery. But the owners have combined their environmental passion with an interest for artisanal food products and gardening. Coming up in the 6 o'clock hour, I'm going to take you on a tour of the Algomah Acres Honey Farm. Good morning, guys. Well, if you've never tasted fresh honey or honeycomb, you need to put that on your bucket list. I tasted my first honeycomb, among other things, at the beautiful Algomah Acres Honey Farm in Greenland. Here's a look at the honey farm and all it has to offer. I mean, there's so much more here than honey. Literally, there are so many different products made from honey. And I'm back here with the owners, Melissa and John. Guys, thanks so much for being here this morning. Now, what got you started with a honey farm and a meadery and all of the things that this has become?
Well, we started with 2 beehives, and we had, there's a lot of land out here available, overgrown farmland. And John's interest in agriculture and culinary interests in the honey, was where his interests were, and just the potential of the beeswax and the honey and all the other uses.
Yeah. Now, what exactly is it here at Algomah Acres that you have to offer?
Well, this great space, we started off just wanting the basement as a workspace for the kitchen and everything, and led to the winery, and then that led to this great, using the upstairs, it's back to its original purpose as a gathering place. So we have a lot of concerts, educational programming, art classes, of course, drop-in wine tastings, anything like that. We've been doing some of the, wine and canvas type of things where you get your drink and we paint, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the space is actually absolutely beautiful as we take a look at it. There's so much that you can turn this into. What other events do you have here?
Go ahead.
Well, we started doing dinners and that, and I don't know, I think the biggest things that have gone well are the concerts and the artist markets. So.
Yeah, it's a great venue. We see the stage and the tables, and you say people even have weddings here and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And currently, actually, we're doing a Kickstarter to get amplification for the honey house, so we can actually have a PA system. And so that's going a couple more weeks. And interestingly enough, that's how we actually got our startup funds for doing the winery through a Kickstarter.
Now, speaking of the winery, we're on the wine or the mead that you guys have. What exactly is mead? You say it's really one of the oldest forms of brewery.
It's wine where your primary fermentable sugar is honey, and you can make varieties of them with fruits, spices, different varietal honeys. You can vary in the sweetness from a dry to a really sweet, which is referred to as a sack mead.
And what flavors do you guys make here?
We make a sweet mead, a traditional dry mead, some cardamom, elderberry, raspberry, blackberry, strawberry, any local fruit you can get, thimbleberry. There's just possibilities are endless, really. So.
Yeah, and you also make products we see from all of the honey from your bees. What is it that you have here in the bins?
Okay, well, we started soap making, olive oil-based soap with beeswax and honey, and we do beeswax candles, we do hand-dipped tapers and lip balms, things like that. So beeswax is just as valuable as the honey, actually, for products, and then also painting with the beeswax. So.
Yeah. And of course, we know that we won't survive long without bees, but
right, absolutely.
Yeah,
they're really, honey is a pretty precious material as well as beeswax, and they work so hard to make the base products that we try to present our products in a, manner where they look nice. And
I am tasting how precious it is because you gave me some honey soda that John makes, and it's really quite delicious. We're going to talk about this when we come back. It's really good. It's alcohol free. Don't worry. I know it's still early. All right, guys, so that was the honey soda that they had, and I didn't get to explore it much more, but it really is delicious. It's a really great substitute for soda and sugary drink, so definitely want to check that out. We'll be back with more Algomah Honey Farm things that they have to offer. Back to you guys, Vicki.
All right, thank you very much.
I just hope you actually brought us some back this time.
Thanks, Sam. Well, the Algomah Acres Honey Farm is a three-part operation, as we said, one of those parts being the mead that they make. Now, like we said, mead is one of the oldest forms of a fermented beverage, which you can take it can take on the taste of wine. Here's more from my tour of the meadery. And I'm back here at Algomah Acres Honey Farm where they make mead, and I'm back here with John. Now, John, explain to us again, what exactly is mead?
Mead is where your primary fermentable sugar is honey. And there's a variety of flavors you can do, but still your primary sugar is honey.
Yeah, and you brew it down here in the basement of the Algomah Acres Farm. How does this process start?
Well, you start with some warm honey and some hot water. You mix the two to dissolve the honey, and from there you add whatever type of flavor you want to add. If it's fruit, and we press all the fruit, and it's all hand-picked in the UP. Mm-hmm. And from there you bring your temperature down to about 100 degrees, and then you'll pitch your yeast. And from there it'll go into primary fermentation, and it gets a vigorous working in there where it bubbles up, and you put an airlock on here which mm-hmm. keeps bacteria from entering. It's your, mm-hmm. The worst thing that can happen is foreign bacteria.
Now, is this yeast that's settling here at the bottom?
Yeah, after it settles a while, after it brews for a couple of months, it settles out, and they call that flocculation, where the yeast settles into the bottom. From there, you rack it, which is transferring from one vessel to another, and you use gravity to bring it down, and it eliminates the sediment. Mm-hmm. So after this point, then you end up into a clear product, and it takes about 4 to 5 months before it gets completely clear and ready to bottle, where like this one is ready to bottle.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were saying that it's one of the oldest forms of fermented beverage. What societies or people kind of used or drank mead?
Well, the Vikings were big mead drinkers, and the Celtics were mead drinkers and mead makers. Some of the old stories that people are familiar with, Friar Tuck was always drinking mead. He was a beekeeper and a mead maker.
Ah.
And like the story of Beowulf, they went to the great mead halls and that. So, yeah, it's been around. I'm not sure of the other countries, the significance of mead. But.
Very good. Now, you guys, obviously, you're a honey farm, and you have honey bees, and you also you make art, and you make all kinds of things from what comes from your honeybees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. We did a lot of beeswax products. With the mead, John does the, culinary aspect, and I try to work on the labels. This label, this honeybee, which appears in a lot of our logos, started from a linoleum block print carving, and then we work with a graphic designer to turn it into the labels. And the other thing we do with the beeswax is the encaustic painting, mm-hmm. which I have an example here. And this also became one of our honey logo.
Wow.
So it's a bee transfer, but that's actually pigmented beeswax on the surface. And it's a great medium for experimenting. You can also embed, these are dried flowers that have been pressed. So it lends itself really well to collage. So when I do workshops with that, everybody just dives in and really has a good time.
And that's not paint at all?
Correct. Well, it's called encaustic.
Okay.
So it's beeswax, pigment, and a little bit of a hardener. Wow. So when we paint with it, you have to work on a pancake griddle, sort of a heated palette.
And you say it's an older form of art that's becoming more popular now.
Right, yeah. It actually dates back to the just the early hundreds AD. The Greeks used it to paint the hulls of their ships and to do early portraits. But when oil paint was invented, it kind of went out of fashion. But it's actually having a resurgence right now just because of people becoming more interested in local products.
Well, John, Melissa, thanks so much for inviting us to the honey farm. This has been really informational and interesting, and I know you're a little bit out of the city, but you know, it's really worth coming down to see. How can people locate you online to find out your hours and when you're here?
Great. Well, we're on Facebook, and we have a website, and just a phone call is fine too. We're always willing to come up for people who are willing to make a special trip to visit to see us. So,
and of course, come see some of the events that you have going on. Pay attention to your Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely. We always have, you know, events, culinary presentations, music. So, hope you can make it a destination trip. Come and see us.
Absolutely. Algomah Acres Honey Farm. Great place to come visit, check out. Very informational. Stick around for more of your TV6 Morning News.